F1's experiment with electrification was always doomed to fail. It's just taken 4 races for F1 to realise it needs to change direction, and fast. Electrical power and downforce just do not mix. The energy required to push a draggy, downforce-producing single-seater through the air by far exceeds the energy density available from battery storage. Petrol is around 50 times more energy dense, so the battery can give you a great big boost under initial acceleration, but cannot do it for anything like long enough, and the most beneficial way to use that limited energy for lap time is to deploy it heavily at the start of the straights. Hence, energy management through the corners, unacceptable speed differentials, all the concerns and problems the opening races of 2026 highlighted. The recent regulation tweaks have helped, as did the energy-friendly layouts of Miami and Shanghai, but Melbourne and Suzuka exposed the fatal flaws inherent to this engine formula. By tweaking at the edges of the rules, adjusting deployment and harvesting limits here and there, F1 is simply managing the underlying problem, most apparent in qualifying, which is that the fastest way around a lap is to drive significant chunks of it nowhere near the driver's limit. This is a nonsense that strikes at the very heart of the problem with Formula 1 as it is today. The underlying issue inherent in having too heavy an electrical contribution to the power unit is amazingly easy to solve and well understood. The problem is political and philosophical. What do we want F1 to be, and how do we get the relevant parties to agree to it? At least the FIA now seems to have adopted a firm position that sides with driver concerns about the current formula and, according to FIA single-seater director Nicholas Tombatsis, states clearly that F1 cannot be hostage to automotive companies. His FIA colleague Jan Monchot has acknowledged that ideally there needs to be a much bigger internal combustion engine contribution to the power unit's output, directly implying that the core 50-50 target set by the manufacturers was simply way too ambitious. From 2027, F1 plans to move towards a split closer to 60-40, a step in the right direction, but still not where F1 needs to be to make the energy equation properly add up. 2 senior FIA technical officials have finally confirmed that too much automotive influence has led to excessive electrification in F1, and the FIA's clearly stated intent to return F1 to V8 engines by 2031, if not sooner, is a firm rejection of not only electrification, but the principle of automotive manufacturers dictating the rules of F1 according to outdated concepts of road relevance. FIA President Mohammed Ben Sulayem's bold statement that F1 will return to V8 engines for its next rule cycle came just before the Miami Grand Prix itself took place, and he can be confident in what he says because there's a much more receptive audience to that idea now that people have seen the entirely predictable limitations inherent in the attempted 50-50 energy split with their own eyes. As Tombatsis confirms, the political landscape in F1 has fundamentally changed compared to when the 2026 engine rules were conceived, a period when manufacturers indicated the internal combustion engine wasn't part of the future for road car technology. This turned out to be a false prediction, so much so that F1 is now forecasted to be relying on internal combustion for at least the next 10 years, alongside sustainable fuels. That last point is the important one. Yes, these fuels, whether bio or synthetic, are hugely more expensive, between 12 and 15 times more expensive than those derived from oil drilling. But that's A, not all that important to a sport with F1's cost base and income, and B, not a permanent thing. As production of synthetic fuels in particular is scaled up, and the impetus for doing that has never been greater than since the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, through which 1/5 of the world's oil is transported, so the cost will come down. But whether it takes decades for it to come down to a feasible level for everyday fuel for cars is irrelevant to F1. Long term, it's obvious that motorsport is going to be forcibly decoupled technically from the automotive industry. Aside from the fact that automotive's ultimate destination seems to be fully electric and driverless, and therefore totally unrelated to F1, so it's also true that while full electric power is suitable for road cars, there are other sectors to which it is totally unsuited, such as aircraft and ships, where the energy density of liquid hydrocarbons is essential. A container ship with batteries only as heavy as the fuel which would be needed to sail from China to Europe would literally struggle to get itself out of the harbour before its batteries ran flat. The limited range of batteries with energy density 50 times less than that of hydrocarbons would obviously be unsuitable for long-haul flights. Just as it's unsuitable for those sectors, so it's unsuitable for F1.
This video is presented by Attio, the AI CRM for high-growth teams. In motorsport, the team with the best data wins. Every lap, every corner, every pit stop decision comes down to how fast you can read the situation and act on it. Business is no different. The teams running on Attio aren't the ones working the longest hours. They're the ones moving with laser precision with the right information at the right moment. That's what Attio is built to give you. Connect your emails, calls, and product data, and Attio instantly builds your CRM with enriched data and complete context. Then ask Attio anything. Prep for a meeting in seconds, spot deals at risk before they stall, know your next move before your competition does. Powered by Universal Context, Attio's intelligence layer, every customer signal is connected and instantly actionable. The race doesn't slow down, neither should your CRM. As a viewer of this video, you can claim a 14-day free trial with Attio, so now is an excellent time to up your CRM game with no strings attached. Redeem the offer for free at attio.com/race. Ask more from CRM. Ask Attio.
Once everyone gets their heads around the idea that all these various sectors, road cars, boats, planes, racing cars, require specific solutions for their correct propulsion, so the connection between automotive and Formula 1 can be properly severed, just as it was with the link between transport and horse racing in the distant past. Automotive and F1 share an ancestry, but are two completely different entities, now almost unrelated. Accepting that is crucial to the long-term health of F1. The case for increased electrification was largely environmental, but based upon the automotive world's contribution to greenhouse gases, not the comparatively pitiful amount of energy used by F1 cars driving around for a few hours 24 times a year. With synthetic fuel, no new greenhouse gases are being released into the atmosphere, it's simply reusing what's already there. Yes, it requires huge amounts of electricity, and the electric grid is not yet green enough for large-scale production of clean synthetic fuel, but again, that's an automotive problem, not a problem of F1, which can easily manufacture the relatively tiny amounts needed completely cleanly, if expensively. The scaling problem is not a bar that F1 needs to clear. Now the FIA president has told everyone a return to V8 engines with massively reduced electrification is a matter of when, not if, we can expect a huge political battle in the coming years over exactly what those new engines should look like, and most importantly, who should build them. One of the major reasons F1 has ended up in such a huge electrification mess in 2026 is that it was desperate to shore up manufacturer support for the category at a time post-COVID-19 pandemic when F1 was struggling financially and some teams were on the brink of going bust. Fast forward 5 years and F1 is now in a very different place commercially, but on track is having to live with very obvious and severe consequences from the push to drive more manufacturers onto the grid. No one can deny that getting Audi on board, convincing Honda to return and paving the way for Ford to support Red Bull powertrains wasn't and isn't a big deal for F1, but it's come at a huge cost to what we see unfolding on track. Some of those manufacturers might not want to be part of a retrograde V8 combustion engine future, but so what? Does the dog wag the tail, or does the tail wag the dog? And in any case, there will always be at least one engine builder ready and willing to step up. F1 can almost guarantee Ferrari's participation regardless of the rule set, and Toto Wolff has already indicated Mercedes would be up for the challenge of converting F1 back to V8s. Wolff cautions that a move back to largely or fully internal combustion engines might leave F1 looking a bit ridiculous in the 2030s compared to where the automotive industry is at that moment. Chasing automotive manufacturers at all costs, this is exactly where F1 has ended up in 2026, looking a bit ridiculous and overly reliant on battery technology and engine manufacturers that it could certainly live without.